In this video, I'm going to review what we covered in class, demonstrating how to set up a new file for our business card and letterhead, how to bring in our logo artwork, how to create tints of the colors that we have used, add in our copy and edit it, and then review final export of our files and saving them in the correct formats. So to start, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make a new file for my business card. So I'm going to do File New. And the business card, I'm going to make it 3.5 inches by 2 inches. And for your project, you can make it either horizontal or vertical layout. It's totally up to you. There's our business card. And before you even get going, one of the options that I presented to you is that you can either make it a single-sided business card, or if you would like, you can make it a two-sided business card. When making a two-sided business card or a multiple page document in Illustrator, there is the option either to make two Illustrator files, a front file and a backside file, or you can make multiple artboards within Illustrator and just use those to create the front and the back of the file. Now, making a secondary artboard is relatively easy. We go Window, Artboards. We get the Artboards panel. Here you can see I've got one artboard. And I'm just going to click to add a second one, and you can see the second one now is beside the first. And then I just navigate back and forth between the two as I'm editing them and adding elements to each one. Now, in class, we used the Kawartha Green Meadows logo. I'm going to use it again just because it's an easy one to work with. So I'm going to open up Recent Files. I'm going to select that logo, Command C. I'm going to paste it into my business card. Comes in really big. To scale it down in size, I just have to click in the corner and hold Shift as I scale it to allow it to scale, but scale proportionately. I don't want to not hold Shift and distort my logo or anything. There we go. I'll scale it and put it up in the corner. I want to have the bottom half of my business card green, and I'm going to use that same color green that I used in, actually I'll do this one different. I'm going to put the green color on this side now. I did it on the one side in class. I'll do it over here. I'm going to use that same color green, but I want to also use tint values of that green and fade them into the background. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this into a swatch. The reason why is if I just open my color panel, actually I'll draw a square first so I can show you what I mean. Create my design. Maybe, I'll stick with what works before. I'll just do the bottom. If I want to change this to a lighter tint of the color, and I open up my color panel, Window, Color, you'll notice that I'm presented with sliders for each value, cyan, magenta, yellow, black, or if this was an RGB, I would have a slider for each value. Adjusting this as a lighter tint is actually quite difficult this way. So what I want to do is I want to create a swatch out of this color. So in my swatches panel, Window, Swatches, I've got the color selected. From the flyout menu, I'm going to select New Swatch. I'll give me the options. There we are. And you can see that swatch has now appeared in my swatch panel. This is handy if you're reusing the same color again and again. It's a custom color. It's really handy to make a new swatch of that color, so you can just click on it and change the color instantly. What we can also do with this new color, and I'll double this up so you can see, is we can actually adjust the tint value, because now in our color slider, that swatch is giving us the tint value, which means that we can make it a lighter version of that color, all the way down to a really light color. This can help us to allow us to add visual interest and a little bit of contrast in our layout without introducing too many new colors into our design. I'm going to add my text in underneath now, and I'll get that from my text frame or my text file that I've already made. Here we are. Let's copy and paste it in, Command C. Command V. Kawartha Green Meadows. Now, as we talked about in class, I'm using the alignment principle here to align my copy up with my logo. It helps to keep a sense of continuity. And repetition, I want to repeat the font that I'm using in my logo so there's a sense of consistency. So I'm going to select my type. I know that it is a version of Futura that I used. So I will grab Futura. I'll use Futura regular, not Futura book. So navigate to Futura. There we are. Currently my type is set at 12 point, which is pretty large for type. So I'm going to bring it down to about 9. I'm going to set it white. It'll give me more contrast over top of the green background than having black on green. Next thing I want to do is I want to just format my type so it's a little easier to read, a little easier to see. I'm going to stick my telephone number and my fax number all in the same line. I'm just separating them with a tab that allows it to separate out. I can use spacebar as well if needed. I'm going to set all this type actually down to 8 points. And I'm going to add a little bit of extra line spacing or leading. And I'm also going to add a little bit of tracking or letter spacing. Just because I'm using a semi-bold typeface and it helps it make it a little bit easier to read. For fun, I think I'll make Kawartha Green Meadows a bold version. Maybe I'll make it a point or two larger as well, just so it stands out. Farm fresh eggs. Actually, I'll see if I have a light version of Futura here. There we are. So I'm repeating the same typeface, but I've changed the weight so that it's actually a little bit easier to read when it's smaller. Just spacing these things out. As I did in class, I'm just going to take out the HTTPS. There we are. So I've got my information nice and neatly organized. It's relatively easy to see everything that's going on in the layouts. If I wanted to add in some kind of a visual element, I could duplicate the flourish, maybe set it to a lighter tint value. Set it large and in the background so it's behind everything, just so it adds a little bit of visual interest. Make sure we don't want it competing too much with the type. Maybe I'll make it smaller still so it's not going out of the green. There we are. I make the margin over here the same as over here so they match. Repetition. There we are. So I'm just placing the background a little bit lighter, a little bit smaller, so it just adds a little bit of visual interest, but it's not too overpowering. That's a little too light. There we are. If I want to do my front logo, maybe I want to do on the front, do the opposite, have a white logo on a green background. I'll just add to this one a solid green background. I'll make it 100%. I'll bring the logo over there. Command C, Command V. Change the logo all to whites. There we go. So I got a relatively easy, simple business card that I've created using the same design elements consistently. Couple things I want to do with my file to make things a little more easy to organize. I'm going to group my logo elements together. So I'm going to select them all, and I'm just dragging over top of them with the black arrow. Or my layer panel, I can select them all. I'm going to group them. Keyboard shortcut is Command G or Object Group. I'll label that logo. And I'm going to put it on its own separate layer just to help me keep my file organized. I'm going to ask you to do the same and label your layers. I'm going to make a layer for the background information here. So I'll select that. I'm going to call this copy and text. I'll make another layer for background elements like color. I'm just going to drag those color frames onto that background elements layer. There we are. Bring that flourish in there as well. Over here, I'll just select my logo elements. Group them, Command G. I'm going to move them onto the logo layer as well. I'll call that white logo, green logo. I like to try and keep all my layers labeled and organized as I'm working. It makes editing much easier when everything is layered and organized. There we are. All right, my artwork looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with how things are appearing. I'm going to save this as both an Illustrator file, and I'm also going to save it as a PDF. So to save it as an Illustrator file, which allows me the most amount of editability, I can do File, Save. Save it to my desktop here. I'll save it with my name and then the proper extension as outlined in the project brief. Assignment 01. Save it as an Illustrator file, .ai. Save. I also want to save it as a PDF file. PDF file allows for easier transport, sharing with other people. Not everyone will have access to Adobe Illustrator, but everyone should be able to access and view a PDF. So I'm going to do File, Save As. I'll save it as proper file extension. Business card. And where it says format, I'm going to change it from Illustrator to Adobe PDF. I'm going to make sure I have multiple artboards. I'm going to select all. Hit save. It's going to give me and ask me for options. Right now I'm not going to change any of them. Options that I have the ability to change are marks and bleeds, which we'll learn about later on, different compression modes, preserving Illustrator editing capabilities. So on for right now, I'm just going to leave the settings as default. And if you want to know the best, most easiest way to save it, where it says Adobe PDF preset, PDFX 1A 2001 is a nice standard preset for saving. And now as we see, if we go to the desktop, you can actually see there's my Illustrator file. There's my PDF file. It shows both layers in the PDF file. So setting up our business cards, saving them. Setting them up is not too difficult. The hard part is the actual design portion. Now I kept this design very simple. You can definitely have a lot more fun, and depending on what you research, you can go with a lot of options. Key thing to remember is as we're putting it together, think about what we talked about in class: contrast, repetition, alignment, proximity. Is there contrast between elements on the page? In this case, I've got my white on green, and then everything else is green on white, so there's contrast. It allows the logo to stand out. Repetition, is there a repetition of design elements? I've repeated the same color or tint values of the color. I've repeated the same font throughout the document, repetition. Alignment, are things lining up with each other in such a way that it looks good? On the front, I've got everything lining up with invisible margins. Actually, that last line is almost a little too far off. I'll edit that and make it a little bit closer. There we go. Now that margin looks better. And that's pretty close. I'll have to tinker with that. I've got alignment. Elements are lining up with each other on this page. The margins are all relatively easy. Proximity are like items grouped together. In this case, most of our information is our contact information. On your letterhead, though, you might have like items such as not just your contact information, but address, icons or repetition of icons, or other design elements added in. Contrast, repetition, alignment, proximity is an easy way to ensure that your file and your artwork has a strong solution to it by following those basic principles. So that's setting up, building, and saving a business card file. Hopefully you have a lot of fun with it, and hopefully we get some pretty cool results.